Okay, we have now covered the fundamentals for negotiation. We know how to prepare, determine a BATNA and reservation point, what anchoring achieves, how to build or mend trust, the common pitfalls negotiators fall into and how to avoid them, and what medium of communication to use. Let's bring it all together. You can take a front row seat for our recap of the negotiations between George Lucas and Robert Iger that led Walt Disney Studios to take control of Lucasfilm Limited, the birthplace of the Star Wars universe. As the events unfold, pay attention to the annotations. They will point out the tactics and methods we have discussed as they appear during the conversations. You will notice the negotiations are interest-based, and both parties constantly try to create mutual value. World-class businessmen understand an M&A transaction done right can be much more than a zero-sum game. Following the acquisition of Pixar in 2006 and Marvel Entertainment in 2009, Bob Iger is thinking about the future of Disney.
Okay, Disney now has a reservoir of characters we can build franchises around. Both Pixar and Marvel have given us that. We produce movies and TV shows. We have theme parks. We sell toys. Disney is set on a strong trajectory. But I need to work even harder now to ensure the company's creative and competitive future. The entertainment world is less forgiving than ever. They can destroy us online if we're not great. We need to come up with an amazing project to do well. We need another mini Disney. Warner Brothers Pictures is involved with big projects like Harry Potter, but the Harry Potter franchise won't be self-sustainable for the next decade or more. Perhaps Lego is worth considering. It's a recognizable brand, games, movies, toys. Yes, that has potential. Then again, Lego is a growing concern. Acquiring the company will be difficult. It is constantly generating cash flow. It's the same with DC. Gigantic legacy, but not the right economic choice. We'll be opening the Star Tours The Adventure Continues attraction in Hollywood Studios in May. George will be there. I can discuss with him a possible merger. He's the sole shareholder of the company, and Lucasfilm will make perfect sense as an asset. Even though I have worked with George, I know he strives for creative independence. It will be difficult for him to sell Lucasfilm. He will be concerned about keeping the Star Wars universe secure, but you never know, he can still participate to some extent. He might even expect to get part of the synergies. Lucasfilm has Star Wars, and revitalizing the characters boosts the markup a lot. That's a fair concern. But I must make sure whatever we agree upon is fair, and Disney comes up with the larger part of the upside. We're taking all the risk here. There are possibilities. We can discuss. George, do you want to grab a bite at the Star Tours inauguration?
Hi, Bob. Yeah, catching up sounds great. Let's do it.
May 2011. Bob Iger and George Lucas meet at the Hollywood Brown Derby, usually closed during morning hours, but open for the occasion, just for the two of them, on Iger's instructions.
I will have an omelet. Thanks.
And a yogurt parfait for me. You've been overseeing the Star Tours reconfiguring for 2 years now, right? Are you happy with the attraction?
Yeah, it's great. Thanks. You know, technology has advanced so much after we first created the attraction in '87. But Disney Imagineers just don't seem to know the word no, and the new ride brings a fantastically convincing experience. I'm very fond of working with them.
Glad to hear. I'm looking forward to cutting the red tape later. And I hear there'll be a couple of lightsabers. We can cross them on stage. See how your years of experience will dwarf my skills.
Yeah, can do.
Hey, listen, would you consider selling Lucasfilm to Disney?
To be honest, I am thinking about retiring. I'm 67 years old, and restructuring Lucasfilm over the past few years has been aimed at making the company less dependent on my leadership and vision. But I still have projects to attend to. The Clone Wars is entering its 4th season, and we have the live-action Star Wars on the drawing table. And I have other ideas about movies I might put into production. For the moment, I would have to say no. I'm not ready to pursue that now. But when I am, I'd love to talk.
Okay, that's all I was asking. Call me when you're ready.
Okay, When Disney bought Pixar, they let the management be. They didn't meddle, and that was brilliant. Pixar had all the creative freedom to output great stories. It is possible I may be able to retain some influence over the Star Wars universe if I sell Lucasfilm to Disney. That will also greatly depend on who runs the company after I retire.
February 2012. Lucas contacts Kathleen Kennedy, co-founder of Amblin Entertainment, alongside Steven Spielberg and one of Hollywood's leading producers, and they set up a meeting over lunch in New York.
I suppose you've heard that I'm moving forward fairly aggressively to retire.
Actually, no.
Yes, I am, and I'm making changes around the management to make Lucasfilm less dependent on me as a head of the company. I intend to maintain the title of CEO and to serve as co-chairman for another year. But I want someone to co-chair Lucasfilm with me. That person will ultimately become the head of Lucasfilm.
Okay, let's think about it and tick off some potential candidates.
No. I'm thinking about you doing this.
You know, George, I actually might really be interested in that.
Look, Kathleen, we must build this company up so it functions without me. We need to do something to make it attractive.
You are absolutely right. Excuse me for a minute.
Right. If I'm about to let go of Lucasfilm, what would Disney get out of it? Lucasfilm is a solid brand and has good standalone value. But if it merges with Disney, that's the least of it. Disney will bring the Star Wars franchise back to life, maybe Indiana Jones too, and then the synergies will be enormous. Disney will generate hundreds of millions in consumer product licensing, and they will go for a global reach with all retail. That's not just Star Wars, the movie franchise, as a single cash flow source anymore. It'll be a lot bigger, and a lot more money will flow through it. And I need to be part of it. Bob must realize it's not just Lucasfilm I'm signing over. It's Luke, Leia, Han, my characters, my legacy. I must be a decision maker in the new releases and in the revenues. Besides, I have ideas about the final Star Wars trilogy. My team and I can expand the franchise and market it. Oh yes, Lucasfilm will not be sold at standalone value and markup. And if I pitch Industrial Light and Magic and Skywalker Sound, my top-class digital effects studios, it would add a ton of value. Disney will, without a doubt, use them to help Pixar productions and live-action releases, like the Marvel movies.
Okay, Lucasfilm has Star Wars, its most lucrative commodity.
Yes, and I've been having some ideas about episodes 7, 8, and 9.
Fantastic. Let's do these movies then. Kennedy and Lucas invite Michael Arndt, an Oscar-winning screenwriter, and Lawrence Kasdan as an advisor to write Episode 7. In August, Lucas went to Orlando to persuade Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford, who play Princess Leia Organa, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo, to revisit their characters in future movies. June 2012. Lucas contacts Bob Iger, ready to revisit the topic of selling Lucasfilm. Negotiations begin in earnest.
Bob, this is what I think a sale to Disney will look like. Star Wars and I will always be linked. It doesn't matter if I own the company or not. When I die, everyone will say, Star Wars creator George Lucas. I propose this will be the best course of action. I hand over the entire company, including Industrial Light and Magic, Skywalker Sound, and the rights to the Indiana Jones franchise. But I retain complete control over Star Wars. My team and I have been growing the franchise for a long time, and it's only natural that we know best how to license, market, and produce Star Wars materials. In fact, this is what the business plan looks like, and that's the projected figures. But to get there, we must get the new movies right. I think it would be wise to keep some of this structure intact.
I see where you're coming from. This is your legacy we're negotiating, and I am happy to offer you some autonomy and to consider your valuation. Regarding autonomy, we've done this before with Marvel and Pixar. These studios retain their autonomy, but in a limited way. Here, we can do something similar. Don't get me wrong, we greatly respect your work, and we want to build on your vision of Star Wars, not replace or erase it. That's out of the question. We would love to have you on as an advisor, a consultant. I mean, nobody knows the 17,000 characters and the chronology of over 20,000 years better than you. And that would be good for you. You'd keep an eye out for the characters. But you need to know, if Disney owns Lucasfilm, it will be Disney, not Lucasfilm, that has the final say over all things Star Wars. We are certainly willing to keep Lucasfilm intact. Management, creative team, with Kathleen at the helm.
Okay. We have developed the story treatments for the final Star Wars trilogy. I can relinquish some of the control if Disney agrees to take them and use them as the basis for any future films. And it needs to be added to the acquisition agreement. The projected figures also consider the success of the treatments. Bear that in mind.
That sounds good, but I need to look at the scripts before we agree on anything final.
Look, I know what I'm doing. Buying the stories is part of the deal. You will need to trust me.
Okay, I understand. George, we would need to see some script text before we can continue with the deal. What do you think would be the best way to proceed?
Tell you what, how about if we ensure the treatments will only be read by a limited number of people? You, Alan Horn, and Kevin Mayer. That should work, as long as you sign a non-disclosure agreement.
That's all right, we can sign that. George, we read them. They're good, have storytelling value. Your valuation, however, is soft on the risks we'll be taking. Think about it. There is a lot of uncertainty about the critical acclaim. These figures there are very speculative, and you still haven't told us if Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, and Mark Hamill will agree to shoot if we acquire Lucasfilm. And, okay, we will release globally, but our core market is the US, and the overall macroeconomic growth of the market is something to be cautious about.
On October 30th, 2012, after 5 months of exhausting negotiations, George Lucas and Walt Disney Company President Bob Iger signed the agreement, selling Lucasfilm to Disney for $4.05 billion, equally split between cash and Disney stock. Chip in this negotiation. The other issues were just building the value and playing a strategic role. Both sides made concessions, but ended up with a lot more value than initially on the table. Now, several years after the deal has been completed, we can say, with certainty, both parties won from this transaction. The Star Wars movies created by Disney and Lucasfilm are some of the highest-grossing movies of all time, and movie critics rate them as excellent. Both parties won as they created a formula that allowed them to work together.